Unless you say
Let me point out what the mayor said last month. He said 2 weeks ago, we can't go back and re-rate them now in hindsight. I think you could actually put it on the contract for next year.
We can't. Yeah, I'm not sure of this, but I would think that we could.
I think
we could highlight it, and there are always some variances and different things, and I think we could do it.
I think we can do it.
I think we get, we need to make
The thing
hard
is,
decisions.
we want to, it's probably a mobilization issue because it's the only one that can do on that side of the interstate. I mean, if that was the only thing you're going to do.
It's close to Ward 1 now.
Well, they're doing Pimlico, which is off of Reddick.
Yeah,
So it's not very far.
Yeah, it is too, because you got
Briarwood's not that far.
different contract.
Briarwood is
Different
different
contract.
contract.
That's true.
That's the Superior contract that's doing the major arteries. It's a different contract.
APAC's doing like Pimlico and the
Maybe
smaller
the streets is like that.
But that's right across the interstate.
But across the interstate is.
up to Briarwood and back.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, I'm not saying, well, I'm not doing it, I'm just saying it's a big deal.
Or, I guess my thought is it's probably not a lot of money, but it is the difference between a business wanting to stay or go, especially when it creates all this
Sales tax.
I'm not arguing not to do it.
Oh, yeah, I know. Like I said, it's a beginner question.
It's not a beginner's question.
No, it's not.
It's a great question. I think it's up to this body if you want to put it in the minutes that we take a hard look at that and we see if there are funds for it.
I think the question is the funds for it. I think the question is what's the practical side of doing one street over there. Somebody ought to come back to us and say, when, and it's going to be a month before they get to Ward 1 anyway. They ain't even got to Ward 7, but
They're in there now.
So the question, I guess, would be, is there anything around the Porsche dealership and the Dodge dealership that's in similar situation that can make it economical for paying for mobilization to cross the interstate into Ward 2 in that area?
that's my question. That's something to go do 100 feet over there, but if there's other things that you wanted to do.
We'd look into that.
I think
But we're not going to be over there for a month anyway, so we've got time to look at it.
that doesn't take a motion. Let's just look at that and see.
Even if you can quantify dollar-wise.
We've got, the Ward 2, the original list that was voted out, we still had that quantity in dollars
Right.
floating out there.
Right.
No, we spent that other place with that money.
We did.
We said go fix any other streets in those 6 wards that were under 300. In the wards that we were going into.
Seven and
7, 1,
and 3.
7, 1, and 3.
I think John's point is a good one, that it's tied directly to the sales taxes that are generating the revenue.
Highway authority to take care of things.
They excluded.
Car.
It's only things that,
I mean, it still sells to the city. They're just saying, yeah. I mean, and I think it's a major.
I still think we can do it.
you're going to bring back to us?
Yeah.
Okay, I feel good. What else?
If we ain't got those,
Oh, man.
the printed documents are not here.
Cynthia, are you okay? No, I've been advised not to. So the only thing I'm going to say about going into executive session is that, serving on this commission is something that I think we all feel is important, and that's why we're here. And if we come and can't do our work because we don't have the materials in front of us, or have had them in front of us, so that we can make intelligent decisions and direction for this, it really just is kind of a waste of time for the city, for all those folks sitting around the room as well as us. So I just would implore IMS, please, please hear that we are very, very much wanting to see that stuff by Friday at noon from now on. And what we will do, and I'll make this our pledge, because Cynthia does the minutes, but I will go back through with her and make sure that if there's things that we ask for that are not in there, that we will value, okay, we need that kind of stuff, that information. It's just, it just frustrates me when we don't have it. Okay.
You did,
Yes.
and the other one?
Yes.
That's what they're saying.
When we met at the work session, we presented the regional, or in this case, the Hines County list, and that was in those books that were handed out. We followed up with CMPDD, and they took a couple of streets out that were actually state highways that made a minor adjustment on the rating. Instead of your highest street having a 60,000 volume, which is Lakeland, that dropped it down to 41,000, which is County Line Road between 55 and Ridgewood. It didn't affect the general order of the streets that we were reviewing. So what we've got to do is get this PDF in. It has the dollars and cents. Thank you. I'm the kind of person who's pulled it out. Yes. So these are what we are requesting to apply for. This is,
Would you,
Did he biggie it?
can you give us a 30-second about what we're applying for?
yes, the
Remind us.
30-second we're applying for. We were looking at State Street.
No, I mean, what's the program?
Oh, this is the Surface Transportation Pavement Preservation. There is $7 million for the entire metro area. It is a competitive process based upon those priority scores in that book, with those minor adjustments taking out the Lakeland drives that should not have been in there. Majority of that score is based on that priority, and then the volume, and then also how much match each participating agency, whether it's a city or a county, is applying for. Basically, our job as municipalities or counties is to make an application based upon those scores, put in what match we want to put in, and then send it in. And they're basically scored up, you know, first to worst. And once they get to the $7 million, anybody off the bottom, they do not get funded. That happened to us last time. We got only a Terry Road, and a number of others did not get funded because of what some of the other counties did and end up returning money back.
So Robert, do we determine the match? I mean, does that go into the scoring system, or?
It does, and the minimum is 80-20. We have to provide 20% of the construction and construction engineering for a project. Preliminary engineering, basically developing your plan specifications, cities and counties have to fund that themselves. So the federal funding is only for the construction and construction engineering. We could apply for for more points in that rating system, say 50-50, which is the best you can do in the points. That means more money coming out of your city or county pocket. Our recommendation on this is for 75-25, because you'll get some additional points if you provide more than a minimum match. I think it's a reasonable recommendation.
Mr. Lee, can you make that one more size larger at least?
Bigger.
Or another one?
Yeah.
Keep going, keep going.
There we go.
Yeah,
We're at the
Make
top.
it big as
Keep
you
going.
can. Keep going.
More.
That's better. You can more.
We're getting good.
Or
One more.
Hey, you.
All right.
That's a visually impaired.
five.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Wait till I take my glasses off. You ain't seen visually impaired yet. So we're asking for, first up, Woodrow Wilson. The limits we chose is I-55 to Mill Street, which is one of the segments on that spreadsheet. Our biggest focus will be between Peachtree and the VA. That is the section where you have some trees in the median, and they've gotten under that concrete, and the concrete has failed because of soil issues under there. So
Peachtree.
that's the Murrah turning.
Okay, that's Where that, yeah.
So that's that rough spot when you
Yeah.
come over the hill to VA,
Yeah.
coming down the hill to Murrah. That's our focus spot, but we budgeted for 55 to Mill Street at most. And so what we want to do is to make repairs around the area with the trees where it's very rough, where a lot of the cars come into UMC, to Bellhaven, to Murrah, into the south end of Fondren, and eventually into the Medical Mall. There's some other spot repairs that we need to look at as well through that area over towards West Street where the asphalt's moved around over the last 6 years.
When you say you focus on these trouble spots, is that saying, is this idea to redo the whole street or just go through there and fix the areas that need to be fixed? Or is it to resurface?
Our main focus will be those spot areas, and then also if we can do a mill and overlay for the whole section, we would want to do that. There's another project that's in the works.
Reconstruct the spot areas and then, okay.
Mill and overlay as far as that budget can take, and also the rest of the sidewalks, which we have to do. We can't skip it. The total calculated on that is $2.7 million. So what we would be asking for on this project from the commission is to be able to match 25% of that for likely fiscal 18, and then provide the preliminary engineering, which we'll have to estimate that cost for fiscal 17. That the preliminary engineering cost, we don't have to have that known up front to put in that application. We have to specify the federal ask and then what we're committing for that construction for fiscal 18 for the construction at this time.
So you're looking at $2.7 million. We're going to put up $700,000. We're going to put up $2 million, roughly. I mean,
that sounds close.
I mean, that's 2.8 is $700,000.
That's small money.
Well,
the next section is North Side Drive. The limits on the MPO is from Triangle Drive to the West Frontage Road. The section we will want to look at is from State Street to the Frontage Road. State Street Triangle Drive is in good shape. It don't need any work. That area, it's 4 lanes. It's beat up, tore up, every which way. Even the sidewalks are bad. That's going to be some more detailed repairs involved in there. A lot of soil issues in there that will have to be taken care of. So it is a bit of a deeper project, but there's no concrete involved, and the traffic control is not as involved as it is on Woodrow Wilson. So the total for that construction is basically $1.9 million. Next up, this is a 2-parter on State Street. This is from Woodrow Wilson to Webster Street, basically for the First Presbyterian Church. That's in front of the Cabot Lodge, Millsaps College, and it kind of comes over the hill where we had a water line repair that the pavement's kind of sunk. 5 lanes, some of the curb and gutters got repaired. We got to address the sidewalks through there. We don't have to put the new sidewalks in front of Millsaps and Cabot where they have a lot of landscaping, but the sidewalk, we do have a sidewalk, we got to bring that up to current standards. That cost, we're looking at about $2.7 million. This is Medgar Evers, and we combined all 4 sections on this from north side to Holmes. This is going to be a combination of some mill and overlay, some punch-out repairs, and some overlays in places, and then some other spots just punch-out repairs with no other work, because there's some variety of issues with that concrete from where the state highway maintenance begins near north side down towards Holmes. That is the red light just north of the bike.
With the old tire storage.
Yeah. We've got some shoulder and some crossovers to mill and overlay up closer to 220. And that's a $3.8 million project, and we may want to bust that into 2 applications. We'll have to sit down and look at it. But the total cost for the whole thing, as shown here, is 3.8. And that's about a 3 to 3.5 mile section of 4 and 5 lane road. Pearl Street, 1, 2, and 3. So this will be from I-55 to Fair Street. It's pretty much mill and overlay, a lot of work downtown, a lot of sidewalks.
That raises a question I wanted to ask you.
Go ahead.
The exit ramps off the interstate, are those the cities or DOT?
Down to the left,
No,
state maintenance ends at the end of the concrete.
they're doing the concrete. So would this take care of filling in those craters?
Yes. Part of the Pearl application and the Pascagoula application is all those ramps under the bridge we do need to take care of.
So when the concrete ends, it's the cities?
Yes. So this is just under $2 million here. Same thing. Pascagoula Street. Pretty much same limits, same scope of work, you know, same ramps, about the same cost. I think there's just a minor difference with the not having the bridge there. Let's see.
So we would apply for all of these and hope that we get selected for a couple or a few?
It's going to depend. If you look at the overall in the book, all the yellow streets that are city streets, you have to go a ways, a couple pages in before you start thinning out city streets and getting into your Clinton streets, your Bolton streets, and your county roads. So I think we have, you know, a good chance. We have a lot of streets with a lot of higher volumes. We have, you know, rough roads. I mean, they speak for themselves.
Do they?
And one other thing, Charles, I didn't see state between Webster and Fortification. Was that in here?
Mm-hmm. Should be in it. Right.
Why don't you mention that?
No.
I mentioned
Yeah.
Woodrow to Webster.
You
I
got
missed
First
it.
Press, but not First Press.
North Side, Woodrow, state to Webster.
There
Okay,
it is.
label. That's a label issue. I missed it. And first and last, and not least, state from basically First Pres down to Fortification, 5-lane, mill and overlay, spot repairs, sidewalks, the usual, just under $2.5 million.
A 2 or 3 part question.
Go ahead.
Number one, is it conceivable that all $7 million could be spent in the city of Jackson? Conceivable, that means it's done purely by point rating.
By CMPD?
It is by a point rating. Ultimately, the technical committee and policy committee has the final say, but with the point system was developed through the technical committee. I was on that committee, so to try to take all the haggling and politics out of it, it is possible. Is it probable? Probably not.
I know
There's
it's not
some
probable.
pretty rough roads.
I
And,
mean, it goes to my second question.
okay.
If you had all, if we applied for all those, if the city applied for all those projects,
Mm-hmm.
does one compete against the other, or do they have equal points applied to those projects?
Equal
The
points.
ones that you have right here, if you put in an application for each one of them, and we're not gonna get them all, are they equal points compared to each other?
Compared to everybody. So it's not like, well, we're going to deduct points from Jackson because they
No,
have.
I'm saying, if you did State Street from Woodrow Wilson to First Pres, then from Webster to Fortification, do both of those get 122 points, and they only gonna fund one of them, who gets to decide which one of those is funded?
The tiebreaker goes, the one tiebreaker they put in, and this is the Federal Highway System, is the National Highway System, or principal arterials, which is why we focused on those. In fact, most of these are
Yeah.
National Highway System principal arterials. Hopefully that will be a tiebreaker over the
I'm not
other
worried.
cities.
I'm not worried as much about the tiebreaker over Bolton or Clinton. What I'm worried about is the tiebreaker. If we did however many projects that is, that's 8 projects. If we submit on all 8, what's the tiebreaker between them against each other?
If they're all equal and they're all on the highway system, I think the next tiebreaker is the volume. I may be mistaken,
So
but I
can you-
think it's
okay,
the traffic
see,
volume.
What I would like to know, what I'd like to know, I guess my main point is, if we're not gonna get all these, which I bet we don't, because that amounts to $10 or $15 million, which ones of ours would knock out another one of ours if we wanted to decide, yeah, let's do north side, but don't do State Street or whatever. I mean, who gets to decide that tiebreaker, them or the
Our
city?
priorities.
Yeah.
I will say this, if you look at the rating sheets, Pearl and Pascagoula, they're needed, but the thing that's hurting them is they're half streets. They're one-way streets. So basically, one application's for one side of a 4-lane road, one application's for the other side of a 4-lane road. Your volume's basically in half. So as far as your rating, I do have concerns that those may not get funded.
You can't combine that in one
because
project.
you can't combine them as a 4-lane road with a city hall in the middle of it.
So, Robert, have you scored these projects? I mean, you presumably understand the scoring systems that you were on the committee that developed it. I mean, have you put a score to each?
I haven't put a
project?
score to each, but just looking at the CMPDD calculated priority, making sure we pick principal arterials that were high up on that list of the Hinds County. I don't have, like the Rankin County data or the Madison County data. I only had Hinds, Jackson, Clinton, etc. Now, State Street was the second one on the list once you took the 2 Lakelands out. Woodrow Wilson was number 4. Northside was number 8. State Street from Woodrow to First Pres was number 13. So those are, we picked 4 of the top 13 in the whole county.
Okay, that carries me. Those are 4 of the top 13.
Mm-hmm.
And Pascagoula or Medgar Evers or what were
Pearl.
whatever the other ones were, that are not in the top 13, if we put them in there, would it knock out Woodrow
No,
Wilson?
no. I think on the scoring, that with that volume being your biggest chunk of your score, I think you would end up.
Those,
Pearl and Pascagoula may not make the cut.
I mean, I'm from Auburn. I mean, those 4 that we just named that are in the top 13 would not get knocked out by number 28.
Correct.
Of the city, it might get knocked out by Rankin County, but it won't get knocked out.
It won't get knocked out by ourselves.
That's what I want to do.
So, I mean, I wonder, is there a strategy to this? Like, if we had one that we thought was especially high scoring, would it make sense to maybe offer to match it more than 25% to really put us over the edge? If you thought that one was on the cusp or something, I mean.
I think the key on this is because we have so many bad roads relative to the neighbors, I think we have a good chance of getting more of the funding than others. There's another pot of money for capacity improvements, your 4-lane roads. We're not even touching that on this because our priority is repairing what we have. And Federal Highways made that a priority too as well.
The 4 that you said were in the top 13, what is the total construction on that amount to?
The 2 states, Northside and Woodrow, so
2, 4, 6, 8, about $9 million.
yeah, 2.5 there, 2.7 there, 1.9 there. Somebody do the math for me.
7.2,
And
7.1,
2.7 there.
9.1, about just under $10 million. So that would, that's the city's problem. I'm just wondering, is it worthwhile to get beyond that with what you fill out application for?
Fill out the applications, actually keep the parts free.
Okay.
I mean, the key thing is if you
I'm
win, you
not
need to
worried
have
about
the
your
money.
time.
Nothing is free.
Nothing's free.
I'm worried about your time.
But-
That's all I'll say.
But the key thing is you don't have a chance if you don't apply.
Yeah.
Stuff happens.
I think it would be advantageous for us to put them in, even if it's 5 or 6, because you don't know what the other metro counties will put in. But talking to some of the lobbyists who were aware of this money coming down, we got a very good opportunity to get a large portion of it. I would hate for us not to have it in, and
Just need for them to do it again.
My one last question.
All right.
Does it make any sense to divide Medgar Evers into 2 projects?
That's something that we'll sit down and discuss. They both are generally, if you split it in half or thirds, they're still kind of similar. Concrete, some asphalt, punch out. I mean, the
I'm just
scope of
talking-
work
I'm
would
just
be
talking-
similar.
I'm just talking about the $4 million project compared to $2 million, but I'm not.
The chair will entertain a motion at this point.
The motion is, okay, but the motion is to put up the matching money for them.
To submit.
Go ahead.
To submit all of them.
Submit all of them.
We would be supporting.
But that we
We commit to matching funds.
yeah, I mean, that city can submit whatever they want to, what our deal is, we're committing to 25% matching funds on any that get approved.
That's correct. Is that your motion?
Okay, okay, I mean, I make it, but it's, we're committing to approve the matching funds, even though it's probably 2017 or 18 dollars,
Yeah.
if they get approved.
It's worth it.
So moved.
Motion,
Second.
second.
And
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And the last thing on the FAST Act is the bridges. We discussed that pretty quickly, and Charles may want to chime in, because I don't think I have these on the spreadsheet. We're looking at 3 bridges to apply for. And one is the McDowell Road Bridge, which is the 4-lane bridge near the Save-A-Lot, Little Caesars down in there. That is a higher dollar, and I'll let Charles, I guess, explain.
Well, I mean, those are the top 3, but realistically, there's only $2 million in the pot in the metro area, so, we were just like, if we put in an application, we'll just ask for maybe $225,000, $250,000.
For all 3, and I didn't mention the other 2.
Yeah, I mean, but, we have to pool some resources somewhere else to fund it, but, I think in order for that application to get some credibility, because I think if you ask for $800,000 or $900,000, compared to some of the other.
What's the price tag generally for those bridges?
Well, McDowell Road, you're probably looking about 1.8 million, and the other 2 about under $500,000.
And the other 2 are Officer Thomas Catchings, which is over going towards the VA fields, and Greenwood Avenue, which is currently closed. That's in the bottom part of Ward 7 down off Daniel Lake at the Harley, crossing the Harley dealership.
We have that one of those plans in writing somewhere?
No, I'm sorry.
But it's still a 20-25% match on the bridge fund.
Yes.
When does that due?
Same time. They're due on October 21st, so should the commission take action on the bridges, we'll have to go to city council to authorize the resolution and the application at the 18th meeting to turn in on the 21st.
So Dr. Williams, here's what I'd ask your advice on. Is in the event that these projects come in higher than we anticipate without us having anything in writing, if let's say these projects are selected and one of them is selected, one that we think costs $500,000 is $800,000. Can we somehow agree that before we spend those dollars that we come back?
If it comes in at $800,000, using this example, MPO doesn't raise their dollar amount.
That's right. And that's my concern without having an accounting.
But if we said we don't have the money, then you just give it back and the next project over in Rankin County gets funded.
Right.
Well, it'll go back in the pot.
You go back in the pot and they would spend it on the next one down the list. Okay.
Yeah, generally it's a 7-year highway bill. The money that the CMPDD is calling for projects for is for about 2 or 3 years. In another 2 or 3 years, we'll go through this process again, another call for projects, and we've got to revisit the scoring criteria for all the various pots at that time. So in about 2 or 3 years, we'll be back doing this again. So that's something also to keep in mind on the long term. Probably about similar overall dollar amount, about $20 million.
So I'll put it in a form of a motion. I'm going to work with you here, Cynthia. So I move that we approve the submittal of the bridge project based on project 1 being up to
McDowell Road being up to 250, 250,000.
Okay, so you got that, Cynthia? And the second one was?
Officer Thomas Catchings, up
Yeah.
to
Up to 200.
200. And the third being Greenwood Avenue.
200,000.
Excuse me. McDowell's gotta be more than that. McDowell's gotta be 500.
Well, in order to have a competitive application, you know, if I request $500,000 and everybody.
I thought you were requesting $1.5 million. Oh, you only.
No,
Oh,
that's the estimated what we're.
that's what you're asking him to go for.
No, sir. No, sir. We're gonna ask for about a quarter, $500,000, $250,000.
From MPO.
Yes. No. Well, we're asking the commission to allow us to ask for that amount of money, up to that amount of money.
250 federal.
Right.
So, read what you got.
I'm still lost.
Well, let her read it and we'll clarify.
By the way, the McDowell Bridge is gonna cost $1.9 million to fix.
To replace it, yes, sir.
Who's gonna pay for $250,000?
We're gonna ask the NPO on the application, just as we are on the streets.
For $250,000.
That's right.
And you asking us for $1.7 million or $1 million?
No.
All right, who's gonna
No, I'm
come
not
up with
asking, no. We're just asking to apply for that amount of money.
And so all we're 25% of what you're asking them for, and you're asking them for $250,000.
Well, there's only $2 million in the
I
pot.
understand.
Is there a
If I-
match?
Yes, there's a match.
25%?
That's what, yeah. So then,
We're 25% of 250, we're not at 25% of $1.9 million.
right.
If I had 250, it's better than what I got now. Which is
So,
I got you.
I gotta start somewhere, but it's
All right, I'm with you. I'm with you.
okay, so Cynthia, read back what you have.
62,500 is what we paid for that bridge.
So you're gonna request 250 for,
Okay. A motion was made to approve the three bridges submitted to the MPO by the city based on the following amounts. For McDowell Road, up to $250,000. For Officer Thomas Catchings, up to $200,000.
and what's the last one?
Greenwood Avenue.
At how much?
$200,000.
$200,000.
Okay, and so we're clear, we'd have the match for that amount, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's my motion.
You've heard the motion?
Second.
You now have a second. Any further discussion? None. All those in favor?
And we're clear that if it exceeds that, we'll be back.
Well,
Yeah.
we're talking about still not 2017, 2018 dollars.
Right.
My understanding from an accounting standpoint, this doesn't even go in as obligated now. I mean, we don't have to have the money to bank or anything, because you gotta get the grant back from MPO and then accept it before we get into an obligation.
That's what we have to
Figure out whether that's the bridge.
That would be, right. Okay.
But that does need to be kind of an asterisk. This may be coming. Goes on the
Oh,
bridge and
absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
new category.
Oh, yeah.
This may be coming category.
Be very small ass.
Yeah.
All right. That good? Yep, we pulled it out.
All right.
Any other questions? Any comments from the commission?
Looks like we've got our documents. I would like to maybe review those and have them for the next meeting.
We're going to get them as we go out,
Great.
okay?